steak salad sandwich board. That way, everybody can eat their steak however they want. This is great for family dinner or if you're having company over. The first step is to season a bunch of sliced onions and 2 good-looking ribeye steaks. And all I'm using is lemon pepper seasoning, and those look great. And then I'm gonna sprinkle on some salt too. And I've got a grill that is really heating up here. So I'm gonna brush on some olive oil first just to make sure the steak doesn't stick. And I'll put the seasoned side down, and that way I can season the other side. Okay, now I've just gotta grill the steaks, then I'll take them off the grill pan, grill the onions, then I'll make some horseradish mayo, get bread ready, slice the steaks, and I will see you on the other side. So for the steak, I'll give them 5 minutes on the first side, turn them, and cook them for 4 more minutes until they're medium rare. Then I'll take them out onto a board and just let them rest. Next, I'll put the onion rounds on and cook them for about 5 minutes. Now for the horseradish mayo. So for this, I'll add ½ a cup of mayo to a bowl, along with ½ a cup of sour cream, 3 tablespoons of prepared horseradish, a teaspoon of Worcestershire, ½ a teaspoon of black pepper, a good pinch of salt. Give everything a good mix and tip it into a serving bowl. Okay, back to the onions. I'll just turn them and give them a few more minutes. Then it's all about the crusty bread. Put it on a board and cut slices. The onions are ready, so I'll take them off. And finally, it's about slicing the steak. And with that, everything's good to go. Okay, I do believe I have everything I need to build this steak salad sandwich board. So I'm gonna start with the steaks, and I'm gonna arrange everything on this beautiful board. With the steak, I'm gonna put some slices of bread. Now, these beautiful onions, the lettuce, beautiful tomato slices. And then I have sliced white cheddar, this beautiful horseradish mayo, sliced green onions to put on the steak, a little bit of sea salt over the tomatoes. It is absolutely glorious. Cheeseburger sliders, and these are not the sliders that you think. So I started sauteing some onions in a little bit of vegetable oil, and I'm adding some ground beef, and instead of forming them into individual patties like you would normally see sliders, I'm going to cook all the ground beef together, crumbling it as I go. Okay, so I'm just gonna cook this for about 4 minutes until the beef is totally brown. All right, the ground beef is pretty much brown, so I'm going to add some Worcestershire sauce, just to make things a little more interesting. I'm gonna add some more pepper. I want the ground beef to be super flavorful, and you can actually doctor this up with hot sauce. You can add like a little bit of barbecue sauce to the meat if you like that kind of thing. All right, so I'm gonna turn the meat off, and I'm going to make a little sauce for the sliders. So what's your favorite condiment for burgers?
Mayo, ketchup, and mustard.
Well, you're in luck, Mauricio, because I am making a mixture of mayo, ketchup, and mustard. Whoa. Not gonna put it on separately. I'm just gonna stir it all together. And again, you can have some fun with this. You can add hot sauce, barbecue sauce. Okay, so look at this. It's called muscanaise. So these are slider rolls, and they come all stuck together in a package. I cut them through the middle, put them on the pan, and I toasted them in the oven just until they were starting to get brown. So watch this. All of the sauce goes on. It looks like a lot, but it's really not as much as you think. And then you want to spread it so it really gets out to the edges. These are cheeseburger sliders, so I've got some grated cheddar jack, and I'm gonna add half of it right on top of the sauce. And then I'm gonna add the ground beef, It's just like one big sandwich, and then I'm gonna bake it and cut it into individual sliders. And it's really packed on here, you guys.
That's the way I like my sliders, nice and beefy.
That's right. Same. All right, so basically you wanna spread the ground beef just kind of so it's on an even layer and it goes out to the edges. And then the rest of the cheese goes on. And then my favorite part, which isn't that revolutionary, it's just my favorite part. Pickles!
Yes.
No.
And
I love
yes, and what I like to do is just do a slice kind of over each section. Okay, so then, as you can imagine, the top goes on, and I'm gonna give it a little bit of a press, and then I have some olive oil, and I wanna show you what I'm gonna do to the tops of the buns. I am not content just to put naked buns in the oven. I have to doctor them up. Naked buns are not my thing. Everything bagel seasoning.
Oh.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of gives the buns a little bit of interest. All right, let's put them into the oven, Alex. Come along. 375 degrees, just until the cheese melts and everything is piping hot, and then we'll dive in. Ooh, ooh.
Oh my goodness.
The tops of the rolls got a little toasty. I love it because they kind of look like pretzels almost. They kind of got that pretzel-y color about them. So then all you have to do is just kind of very casually run a knife through and just cut off however many sliders you want. 1 for me, 4 for Mauricio,
Yes.
7 for Stu.
Yes.
Check it out.
Wow, those look amazing.
I'm starting with the flank steak. I'm just patting it dry, and I'm gonna add a very simple seasoning of just salt and pepper. Now I have a hot grill pan, and I'm gonna put it seasoned side down, and I'll let it start grilling while I season the other side. Flank steak has such amazing flavor. Love the texture. It's gonna take about 5 minutes on the first side. So I'm gonna get started on the mixture for the 3 cheese waffle hash browns. I have frozen shredded hash browns that I let thaw, and I'm adding some melted butter. I'm gonna add 3 grated cheeses. I've got cheddar, mozzarella, and pepper jack. Okay, now I wanna season this with some salt and lots of pepper. When my family eats any kind of fried potato, they add tons of pepper. Okay, and I'm gonna get this into the waffle maker so it can start to cook. I've already got the waffle maker nice and hot, and it's really important to spray it well with cooking spray, just so those potatoes don't stick. And I'm gonna spray the top 2. And then I'm gonna add a heaping cup to each of the wells of the waffle maker. This is a great approach to take if you're making a brunch for family that's visiting for the holidays. They're perfect with a salad for lunch. Now that's my kind of eating. Make a healthy salad and then eat cheesy hash brown waffles with them. And then I'll close the waffle maker, and it's gonna take this about 12 minutes to cook. So I'm gonna go back to the flank steak, see if it's ready to turn over. Ooh, look at how good this is looking. Beautiful surface, gorgeous grill marks. Now I need to let it cook on the second side for another 5 minutes. Okay, the steak is finished cooking, so I'm gonna get it off of the pan. While the steak rests, I'm gonna make a beautiful herb sauce to pour over the sliced steak. And I'm gonna pour some olive oil into a bowl, about 2/3 of a cup, about a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar, finely minced shallots. I've got some serrano pepper that's finely diced, and I'll grate in a clove of garlic. And then I'll chop up a mixture of basil, mint, parsley, and cilantro. This is basically a version of chimichurri, which is right up there with my favorite steak sauces. It's basically a mixture of green herbs, a little bit of oil and vinegar. It is so tasty. Okay, those herbs are totally minced. They smell so good. I would love to have a candle with the scent of all of these herbs together. Delicious. I am so scent driven. Yum, yum. Okay, I'm gonna add some salt and pepper to the sauce, and then this will be good to go. All right, I'm gonna let this sit, and I am going to slice the flank steak. We'll see how this looks. I do believe it turned out just perfect. I'm gonna grab the platter, and I'll get the steak on. Nothing like a white platter when you're serving glorious medium rare beef. Now, as if that wasn't exciting enough, it's time to check on these, waffle hash browns. Oh, look at how golden and crisp these are. And I might add cheesy. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of overlap them one by one. They're nice and hot. Now for the herb sauce. This is so pretty. And I'm just gonna spoon it in a line on the beef. The garlic in this sauce adds really big flavor, and the herbs are so fresh. And then I'll put the rest of it in a little dish on the side. Well, I am almost speechless. This is so pretty. Flank steak with herb sauce, 3 cheese waffle hash browns. This is a new favorite in our house. I'd say I've definitely raised the stakes. I am making skillet spaghetti and meatballs. It's a delicious classic, lots of pasta, lots of meat, and it's baked in the oven. It is gonna be so good. I'm starting on the meat mixture for the meatballs, and it's just ground chuck with some minced garlic, and then 1/3 cup of Parmesan cheese, 1/3 cup of seasoned Italian breadcrumbs, and then a little bit of cream and some beaten egg. To season it, I'm just gonna add some salt and pepper, and then some finely minced oregano, and then I'll just go in with my hands. All right, this is all smushed together, and I'm gonna pinch a pretty generous amount. I'm making pretty big meatballs. I got it all smoothed out. So that's 1 meatball, and I'm gonna make 9 more just like it. I'll put them on a sheet pan first. The next step is to get them into a skillet and brown them in 1/4 cup of olive oil. You have to turn the meatballs so they cook evenly and give them an occasional shake. It takes about 5 minutes. Don't these meatballs look amazing? They're so brown around the edges. They're not quite cooked all the way through, but they will have plenty of opportunity to do that. So I'm gonna move the meatballs to the edges of the pan and move forward with the sauce ingredients. In the center, I'll scrape in some diced onion and some more oregano and more garlic. So there's oregano and garlic in the meatballs themselves, as well as the sauce. This is Lad's idea of the perfect meal. He loves pasta, loves Italian food, loves cheese, and that is why I love Lad. We have a lot in common when it comes to the things that we like to eat. I'm a little more adventurous than he is, but what do you expect from a woman who's 2 weeks more mature than her husband? Okay, the onions, garlic, and oregano have been sauteing. They're already starting to get soft. So I'm gonna add a whole can of crushed tomatoes right in the center. And Lad and I can both handle a little spice in our life. In fact, at our advanced age, we need a little excitement here and there. Just kidding, we're young little sprites. And then I'm gonna add some water just to help make it saucy. I'm gonna crank up the heat just a little bit. So I'm just gonna let the meatballs keep cooking and simmer in the sauce until they're totally cooked through. Yep, this has Lad's name written all over it. I'm gonna turn the heat off under the meatballs, And I'll grab the pasta. I'm just keeping it real classic and doing spaghetti. Now, sometimes if I'm making spaghetti and meatballs right before serving it, I'll put the noodles on a big platter and then carefully spoon the sauce over. It makes a really great presentation. But I'm just gonna mix the spaghetti and meatballs together in the skillet. I've got 2 ribeye steaks, putting them in a plastic bag, and I'm gonna let them sit for just a short amount of time in this delicious marinade. It's an Asian-influenced marinade. The first ingredient is canola oil, red wine vinegar, and also balsamic vinegar, some Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, and then for some zip, a couple of tablespoons of fresh lime juice, a little sugar for a hint of sweetness, garlic, some minced fresh ginger, hot chili oil, salt, and black pepper. Believe me, it's good. Now I'll just pour half the marinade into the bag with the steaks. And the great news about this is it doubles as the salad dressing. So I'll save that for later. Now I'll just seal up the bag. I'm gonna let the steaks marinate for about 5 to 10 minutes. You can let them go longer if you have the time, but you don't have to. Now, one of the best parts about this salad is I top the whole thing with thin fried onion rings. I've got 2 onions and I sliced them really, really thin, and I'm just gonna do a quick soak with some buttermilk. It's just gonna moisten them up, take a little bit of the pungent onion flavor away. And while they're sitting, I'll make the dry mixture, and that's just 2 cups of flour, and a good amount of salt, just about a tablespoon or so. About a half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, gives them a little kick, and then just some regular pepper. And then I'll whisk this together. Okay, now I've got some oil going. It's about 350, 360. So I'm gonna stir the onion rings around just a little bit. And then I'll just take a little bunch, let the buttermilk drip off, drop them into the flour mixture, and then I'll pick them up and hit the tongs on the side of the pan, and that just helps the excess flour drop off. And then I'll just plunge them into the oil, and these are gonna fry in no time. I'm gonna do them in batches so they'll cook really evenly, and they are gonna be golden and crisp and out of this world. The onion rings are just about done. I'm just taking out the last of them. All right, I'll turn that off. Now I'll get the steaks going for the big steak salad. I've got a grill pan. That's a nice shortcut way to grill things. Gives things nice grill marks without having to go outside and light a big fire. All right, 1 steak, 2 steaks. Now I'll let those sit. They're gonna go about 2 to 3 minutes per side. So I'll get started on the salad ingredients. I've just got a big old box of mixed greens, arugula, radicchio. You can use any lettuce you want. All right, now I'll just throw in some whole grape tomatoes. I'm not even gonna cut them up. Okay, spread all that out. Now I'm gonna slice the steaks. I'll go against the grain and just slice sort of thin strips. I love warm steak and cold salad. It's one of life's real pleasures. Okay, and then of course, the grand finale. I'll just grab a nice handful of onion strings and put them right on top of the salad. I know I am breaking a few rules here, but I don't care. This is so delicious. Lad and the kids have been up since 4 a.m. shipping cattle. It's long, dirty work, so as a treat, I'm rustling up a rib-sticking lunch of the kids' favorite dishes. For my little rancher Bryce, it's gotta be beef, so Salisbury steak in a tasty onion gravy seems like just the ticket. I just mixed together 1.5 pounds of ground beef, then added 1/2 cup of seasoned breadcrumbs to bind it all together. Then I added 2 teaspoons of dry mustard, a crumbled beef bouillon cube, 4 dashes of Worcestershire sauce, a tablespoon of ketchup, and some salt and pepper. After that, I kneaded the mixture together, formed some oval patties. I've got some oil and butter in a hot pan, and I'll just get the patties going. Now, because the patties begin with ground beef, I want to make sure they're cooked all the way through. So I'm going to cook them for about 3 to 5 minutes on the first side. Now after the patties are fried, I'll take them out of the pan and then I'll make a really yummy sauce, and that's what makes Salisbury steak so yummy. The patties are done. I took them out of the pan and then I drained off all the grease, didn't clean the pan, and I threw in a sliced onion, and I've been cooking that. It's nice and golden brown, so I'm gonna move into the sauce. I'll just pour 2 cups of beef broth right into the pan with the onions. You know, sometimes I call this gravy, but it's really not a gravy in the traditional sense of the word. It's more of a sauce, and the flavor of the patties really comes through. And then several dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Just eyeball it. And then for a little tang and sweetness, a tablespoon of ketchup. I'd say a heaping tablespoon. And then this is a strictly optional ingredient, but I like to add a little bit of seasoning and browning sauce into the pan. Ooh, that's gonna be nice and dark. It really doesn't do too much except it deepens the color, deepens the flavor a little bit. If you don't use it, it'll still be totally delicious. I'm gonna let that go a little bit. And to thicken it up a little, I'm going to mix some cornstarch with a little beef broth. Just enough to turn it into a paste. My mother-in-law always makes fun of me because I stir things with the measuring spoons I use, but I don't like to do dishes, so I'm in the habit of dirtying as few things as possible. All right, now I'm just gonna add a couple of tablespoons of the cornstarch mixture to the sauce. And then I'll let it cook for just a minute and see what it looks like. The cornstarch thickens the sauce, but it also makes it nice and glossy and really beautiful. If it needs more thickening, I can always add more. If the sauce gets too thick, you can splash in a little beef broth. It's real easy, you can't mess it up. Okay, this looks perfect. It's getting nice and thick. So I'm just gonna add a little salt and pepper. And it looks just so good, so pretty. You can give it a taste, adjust the seasonings as you want, but it looks just right. So now I'll just stick the patties right back into the pan, nudge them around into the sauce, and then this sauce is so wonderful, I want to spoon it over the tops of the patties. You know, the Salisbury steak, I remember, had really finely diced onions in the gravy. And if you didn't like onions, you were kind of out of luck. But I like to slice them big, and that way if a kid doesn't necessarily like onions, they can easily pick them off. All right, Salisbury steak is done. I'm just gonna let them simmer in the pan. I'm making delicious, meaty, very cowboy-friendly lasagna for the guys. I'm adding 3 pounds of ground beef and 2 pounds of just regular pork breakfast sausage to a big pot. And then I'll add about 5 cloves of minced garlic. Now I'm just gonna cook the meat mixture until it's totally browned. I'm gonna add 2 28-ounce cans of diced tomatoes, and then I'll add 2 cans of tomato paste. If you have the little cans of tomato paste, you'd actually need to add 4 cans. This is one of those recipes that I could seriously make in my sleep because my mom made it so much and I have made it so much. All right, now I'll just stir in all the tomato stuff, and I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. It's a lot of meat, so it needs some seasoning. I'll add some fresh herbs later. It just needs to simmer uncovered for about 45 minutes. Okay, now I'm gonna add half of the herbs to the sauce, and then I'm gonna save the rest of the herbs for the cheese mixture. Okay, the sauce is pretty much ready, so I'll go ahead and make the cheese mixture for the lasagna. I've got 2 big containers of cottage cheese. Even if you don't like cottage cheese by itself, it's delicious in this lasagna. My husband would not touch cottage cheese by itself to save his life, but he loves this lasagna. All right, now to the cottage cheese, I'll add 4 beaten eggs, and that helps bind the lasagna all together. And then a cup of grated Parmesan. Then I'll add a little bit of salt and pepper and mix it all together. The cottage cheese mixture is a little more mild than the ricotta flavor, so you really taste the meat in the sauce. All right, that's all stirred together. Now I'll just throw in the rest of the herbs, the parsley and the basil. All the elements are ready, and I'm gonna start assembling it. I'll lay 4 lasagna noodles in the bottom of these disposable foil pans. All right, on top of the layer of noodles, I'm gonna spoon 1/4 of the cheese mixture right over the top. So I'll just spread that all over the noodles. Now on top of the cheese mixture, I'm gonna lay slices of mozzarella. It's just a big old spoonful, pretty much on top of each slice of cheese. All right, and spread that out. Now I'm gonna repeat the layer exactly like the first one. It needs to bake at 350 for about 45 minutes to an hour until it's hot and bubbly. I'll leave the foil on so the top won't get too burned. This is my simple, perfect chili, and it really is just that. It's a total cinch to make. I just throw 2 pounds of ground beef into a large pot with 2 cloves of chopped garlic. Then cook it till it browns. While that's happening, I mix up the herbs and spices. 1 teaspoon of ground oregano, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Then I add an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, the spices, and give it a good stir. Put on the lid and simmer it for an hour. After that, I grab 1/4 cup of masa mixed with 1/2 cup of water. Masa is corn flour, and it thickens the chili and adds a great corn flavor. After an hour, I dump the masa mixture into the chili, stir it together well, then let it simmer for a few more minutes. Then it's done. Simply perfect. Okay, I just snipped the bags open. Dinner doesn't get much easier than this, does it? And I'm just gonna place them in the pot and then just pour some water over the top. And then heat them up and the water will eventually evaporate and it'll be perfect. All right, the chili's thawed. I'll just throw the beans in. I'm using kidney beans and pinto beans, but you can use whatever beans you have in your pantry. And I'm just gonna let this simmer gently until they get back from moving cattle around. And then I've got some fixins ready for the chili. The great thing about these fixins is they're all pantry and fridge standbys. I've got tortilla chips, lime wedges, red onion, and of course, grated cheese. You gotta have lots and lots of grated cheese when you serve chili. It's homeschool co-op day for my oldest child, Alex, and her best friend, Meg. Every Friday they go to Tulsa to a homeschool co-op, and my best friend, Hyacinth, takes them. Every single week, she takes them, stays with them all day, and brings them home. The last thing Hyacinth needs is to worry about cooking dinner every Friday night. So I'm gonna whip up some yummy beef stew with cheddar cheese grits for Hyacinth, and that way she won't have to think about dinner at all. I've got 2 pots going because I'm actually gonna make one for Hyacinth's family and one for mine. I'm gonna brown the meat first. I got a chuck roast and cut it into big cubes. I actually haven't told Hyacinth that I'm making dinner for her. I'm just gonna run in and pick up Alex like I always do and then spring dinner on her at the last minute. Okay, the meat's nice and brown, so I'm gonna go ahead and take it out of the pot. It's by no means cooked. It looks like it is, but in the stew, it's gonna simmer for a couple of hours, and this chuck roast gets so tender. I'm gonna add an onion to each pot. The pot is nice and brown. It has a lot of bits from the meat in there. And then I'm gonna add about 3 cloves of chopped garlic to each pot. All right, now I'll just stir the onions and garlic around a bit. The pots are so hot, they're almost translucent already, so I really just need to cook them for about a minute. So I'm just gonna take a break and grab a couple beers. It's been a long day. Just kidding. I'm I'm gonna add the beer to the stew. This gives the stew really great flavor. So I'm just gonna add 32 ounces of beef stock to each pot. Now to the pots, I'm just gonna add a few dashes of Worcestershire. Worcestershire always adds a nice savoriness, a little bit of richness. Then I'm just gonna add a little bit of tomato paste to each pot. Gives it a little bit of a tang, gives the sauce a little bit of richness, so good. And I like to add paprika to the stew also. It gives it a great flavor, but it also kind of helps with the color. And then I'll add a little bit of sugar to each pot. Now the last thing I need to do in this stage is add the meat into the pot. So I'll just slide half into this one and half into this one. Okay, now I'll just stir the meat in, make sure it's all combined. And then all I need to do now is be patient. I'm gonna put the lids on the pot, turn the heat down, let the beef stew simmer for about an hour and a half, and then I'll put the root vegetables in, let it simmer until it's done. And Hyacinth is gonna be so happy. All right, the beef stew's been simmering away for about an hour and a half, and now it's time to add in the vegetables. I gotta tell you, oh, this smells so delicious. I smell everything, the beer, the broth. Now, I've got 2 carrots for each pot, and then I also have 2 parsnips for each pot. And then I have 1 turnip, and that's enough for both pots. So about a half a turnip per pot. Now, I didn't want to add these at the beginning because the vegetables would be pretty much disintegrated. So this is the perfect time to add them. Let them simmer for about 30 minutes till the veggies are nice and tender. The last thing I'm gonna do is thicken up the cooking liquid a little bit. I'll drizzle in some beef stock into 3 tablespoons of flour, and I just wanna make a really, really smooth, pretty thin paste. Now I'll just add a little bit into each pot, and then it's gonna keep bubbling just for about 10 minutes or so, and it's gonna make the stew just perfect and rich and thick. I'm hungry. I've just been cooking some onion and garlic in a little bit of butter, and the onions are getting nice and soft. So this is a good time to add the ground beef. Just a pound of ground chuck, and I'll add some salt and pepper. And then I'm gonna turn the heat up and just crumble this beef and cook it until it's totally browned. This recipe actually has a funny history. One time when the kids were all small, I said, let's go to the grocery store and you guys can pick whatever you want for me to make you for dinner. And you know what they picked? I'm not gonna name any names. They picked the box that comes with a seasoning packet and a bag of noodles. You know what I'm talking about. You add it to ground beef. So I've been trying to make a good homemade version of the box mix ever since. I think ground beef is one of the best proteins when it comes to budget-friendly cooking. If you have teenagers to cook for or a big family, you can buy packs of ground beef and it doesn't break the bank. Okay, that is totally browned. So I'm gonna add a good spoonful of tomato paste. The tomato paste just adds a little bit of richness to the sauce. So I'm just smushing it around on the skillet, mixing it in with the beef. And then remember that box product I told you about? One of the cool things about it is you put the noodles in without even cooking them first. So I'm putting egg noodles, 12 ounces, into the skillet. Now for the liquid, I'm gonna add about 2.5 cups of low sodium beef stock. And then I'll add a teaspoon of smoked paprika, a good squeeze of grainy brown mustard. Trust me, this is all gonna make sense before too long. A few dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Then I'm gonna add a little more pepper because the noodles and the beef definitely need it. I'm gonna stir it, and then I want the noodles to have enough liquid to cook. So I'm gonna add some hot water, about a cup to start. And while it's cooking, if it looks like it needs more, I can splash in a little bit more. And then stir it and make sure all those spices are worked in. So I'm going to reduce the heat to low, and I'll put the lid on, and I'll just let it simmer for 12 minutes, stirring it a couple of times along the way. time for the big reveal. Let's see what happened in here. Oh, it looks wonderful. Now you can totally serve it as it is now. It's pretty much finished, but I like to add just a little bit of creaminess. So I'll add some sour cream, and how much you add is totally up to you. It just depends on how creamy you want things to get. And just a splash or two of cream. It's sort of a stroganoff idea, but more budget friendly. And then I like to chop up some chives and just sprinkle them over the top. They make it a little bit prettier, and they sure add some good flavor. All right, chives go on. It's nothing fancy, but boy, is it delicious.